Kasumi had an awakened fox as a roommate, little Cinco. And Cinco
Yes,
was,
that's a reference to Cinco-chan, by the way, for those
yes,
who are degenerate and know such things.
we were,
However, it's one of those situations where it's like I thought that Cinco was going to be, oh, it's she's say so, she's Moe.
no,
No, no,
absolutely
she's not
not.
that, not that thing at all. What I
uh,
thought it was going to be, oh, Oni-chan, Oni. I, an opinionated, sassy little meme lord.
yep. And the only one who really kept her in line was Yoshi, because when she got uppity, he would lift her by her neck and use her tail to polish his plates. Cinco would relent almost immediately.
The entire thing being is that basically, because the Japanese government is incredibly leery of, as Snack mentioned before, magic basically causes things to go a little bit goofy. And so, if you're familiar at all with Japanese yokai legend, they Japanese government doesn't want just a bunch of wacky ass spirit animals going around and like, fricking people in the mountains. So they are heavily, heavily strict and often just will erase any awakened animals. And so Kazumi was a former corporate ninja of Shiawase, one of the Japanese megacorps. And her entire thing was that she sent to eradicate Cinco, but Kazumi just could not find it in her to kill this little girl. So they both fled to Seattle, where basically Kasumi, being a child soldier, uh, basically becomes a runner in order to make ends meet as a, effective teenage mom to this little rascal.
And Cinco was stated to be a shaman, and because Snow was currently forbidden from running and was just getting used to her new prosthetic arm, I told everyone that Cinco's spirit was Empress Daji, or Movie Tales. Yeah, yes. We didn't know Sonic 2 was going to be a good movie, okay?
We didn't know that Sonic was in this movie. The entire thing was that, in case you're not familiar, Daji, that's Daji if you're speaking English. She is the entire reason why nine-tailed foxes are considered evil monsters in Chinese and Japanese myth.
Yep.
Yes, even Naruto. Yes, that's where the nine-tailed fox comes from. Uh, it's read the Investiture of the Gods, the Wild Wild Ride. It is really good. Um, and yeah, basically we had, instead of leering creepy Sanic with us, we had, leering creepy tails. So,
Yeah, pretty much. So that way,
Java, you're a big hunk of man meat. No, 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 no. I'm into older ladies. I'm older. Yeah, but I want to, come out alive.
I wish to
Oh,
survive. Yeah, the first thing Kasumi tells her is to not eat him, and Daji deliberately misconstrues the context of the word. I'll leave it at that. Head over to a chop shop to identify a stiff, and they ended up having to go in through the roof because the electronic lock couldn't be taken from the outside because it was so low tech Honoka couldn't access it through the grid. So Kasumi and Trapo.
is this before or after we basically I unveiled the secret stupid thing I had in mind for Kasumi's fighting style.
I think that was later on. See, they notch a grate down, and Dutaku called it a grating weakness, to which I responded, it was a great technique. And Trapo was like, well, we can rouse him and grill him later. Because, you guys weren't tired of laborious puns yet, were you? And we ended up having a small kung fu battle in the chop shop. And, okay, this was gonna go somewhere, and ultimately it didn't, where they end up finding this... There was... Again, Shadowrun Returns is a whole story about the Emerald City Ripper. In this case, there was a wannabe who was much sloppier than that. Now, mind you, that happened about 25 to 30 years prior to the events of this story. So the MO was different. It was going to ultimately culminate in this dude basically trying to Frankenstein his perfect waifu. But we didn't actually ultimately get to finish this particular storyline. So, yeah, that's where that was going.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I would not have picked up on that unless you had just mentioned it.
Well, no, because he also killed some dudes along the way, but I think he was doing that for, internal bits, not external.
That makes it even better.
Ugh. I have been on the internet too long.
Oh, no, I That's where I'm able to, say that.
And then Cinco decides to do some recon because she was obsessed with crab yokai, Bakagane. And just kind of started throwing crabs in the air. And Kazumi lectured them for not wiping their feet and putting on slippers.
Yep.
As we learned that the good doctor of the chop shop was making plans to head to a water treatment facility. So the team's like, okay, we better get some supplies and get ready. Because this guy could be crazy for all we know. He could have all sorts of weird stuff happening. And Anansi casually crawls up on Trapo's shoulder and says, hey, man, why weren't the bowlers able to bowl? The pins went on strike. Hey! I'm never apologizing. And, oh yes, this is where Kasumi takes Cinco to the toy store. And this bit became kind of infamous because I pulled all this out of thin air, where Kasumi jokingly asks, I never understood why there would be a last Jedi. What even is a Jedi? Why would you pour sake into the eye? And bot blocks, Cinco, what even is this? And Cinco, corrects her. The Jedi are an elite order of space samurai who served the space daimyo during the feud with the Space Lords. This is classic sci-fi, Kasumi-chan. And bot blocks is like the hot new thing, like Lego, but more Finnish or maybe Danish, one of those pastries you eat for breakfast. Then, Cinco, this is a 2-paragraph rant. I'm just going to read it verbatim just because this was a well-received aside. It all started when they discovered the nature of the great power, which flows from all living things in the universe. So in the Order of the Jedi, named for Judas Yu Sable, the first eye of Zarnoth, conforming to the 32 virtues. Well, it's technically supposed to be a 33rd, but they only brought up the very end of the 9th film in the 3rd act, so the expanded universe likes to make fun of it. Anyway, using the 32 virtues, they create the great spirit armors, which the Jedi use, which is how they fly around and have sword battles in space. When they discover that they could manifest the great power into their spirit blades, but that's mentally draining, which is why they end up using the quadrilithian crystals from the planet Zeeb to make the magic space katanas. Sure, they aren't as strong, but there's no risk in someone else's spirit saber smashing through yours. Anyway, the space daimyo, who may or may not be Judith herself, since we never actually see under her mask, tries to protect order, but there's a new wave of protesters, the Space Lords, pressing for popular democracy. At first it sounds like they're pressing for equality, but they actually aren't. They're mastering the similar yet dissimilar 32 virtues of the Slythe. The Dark Order, equal yet opposed to the Jedi. They want to use popular democracy to unseat the virtuous reign of the Eternal Space Daimyo in order to instigate long-standing agitation throughout the galaxy by inflaming old long-standing wounds between the colonized planets, which is when we learn of Lorelei Starchaser, the heriter of the virtue of tempered compassion, on the planet of Frothgar at the end of Sector C-1172. She is summoned by the Daimyo's only child, the Night Prince Errant Ziegler, who teams up with his half-brother, the rogue space pirate Franz Blazemaster, to save the galaxy.
And I'm just saying, right now, I'm just saying, space battle. Where's the expanded
the
universe
actual
for space battle?
The actual novel of space battle.
Yes.
I do kind of feel compelled at this point. How long has this all been going on? The early 1980s.
Yeah, so it's been going on for about 100 years at this point.
Yep.
And so, yeah, we're basically just, at this point, it just becomes kind of a snowball of jokes about, the fact that there's like 50 movies, and it's, it hasn't been good since Space Battle 32 or something like that.
I mean, yeah.
Basically, this is just a send-up of Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. But with a little Power Rangers, a little Super Sentai, a little Ronin Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
This is when Clockwork returned to the table with his new runner, Temperance, who didn't really seem to display that particular virtue, so I guess he's not a Jedi either.
Nope.
But he was a mage, and so he was allowed to join in.
He was a hermetic mage, wasn't he?
I believe so, yes.
Which is funny, because he kept, trying to be I'm going to unlock forbidden knowledge. I'm like, as a hermetic mage.
Oh, no, I was going to let him do it, because...
Are you sure about that?
I was going to let him do it, because he was going to be approached by a particular mentor spirit. People who are fans of Shadowrun are familiar with him. His name is the Man in the Suit, and also known as the Adversary, or literal, actual Satan. And...
as opposed to literal, actual Dracula.
Right.
He was a completely different fellow.
And actually pretty well-to-do, all told. Yeah, I was going to have the Man in the Suit approach him because of his love of arcane knowledge and be like, oh, so you like arcane knowledge, do you? I can help with that. And just see how far down that rabbit hole he ultimately went. But once again, another one of those things I didn't actually get to cash in on. Then we get introduced to Temperance, ends up kind of being thrown in, and Senko chooses to go with. And...
oh, yes, and the entire reason why I decided to go to a toy store was because I wanted to get a trap. And, boy, let me tell you, I succeeded beyond my wildest dreams.
Yes, you did. Because they got a bunch of Legos that they were going to use in lieu of caltrops. And
anyone who's ever stepped on a Lego will confirm that they are, in fact, actually well. So
they are. In fact, for this run, they also got help from a runner named Delta V. And that means nothing to most of you at home, but Delta V was my runner who I used throughout Shadowrun Returns. She was a human decker, and ended up helping them with some of the things that Honoka was not available for. And the doctor, one Dr. Dennis, was found going towards this warehouse, and as they're staking the place out, poor Troppo, he fell and landed butt first on a Lego. And everyone in the party basically sympathetically cringed in agony. Just, R.I.P. Troppo's booty. I'm so sorry.
Don't cry for me, Mrs. Johnson.
Just imagining, fade to gray. Zoom pan camera in on face. Single tear.
Dear sister. By the time you read this, my arse will be dead.
So they end up ambushing the doctor and forcing him to cooperate, thinking that he must be this Emerald City Ripper imitator. He explains he actually is not. He does have body parts, but they were legitimately purchased from chop shops, usually of the poor and homeless, and nobody would miss the actual bodies. They were not fresh. He didn't kill anybody. And everyone's like, dude, that's still really weird. So he's like, okay, I'll explain. He was overseeing a colony of victims of this particularly nasty virus that turns people into ghouls. And the ghouls of Shadowrun are akin to zombies in that they do crave the flesh of the living, but they are different in other fundamental ways, including the fact that they retain their mental faculties. So you're now imagining smart zombies, which are fundamentally much more terrifying than fast ones. And eventually, he comes to explain that they were basically using him as a bit of a scapegoat for a lot of the new Ripper incidents, trying to make it look like it was him, but it wasn't, as most of what he had was actually lab-grown. And he was trying to keep the ghouls safe so that he could actually one day cure them. He was actually acting out of mostly altruistic means. And I actually kind of gave them the chance to be like, okay, what are you guys going to do about this? And I'm like, you guys have the option and well within your ability to destroy all the people who have the HMHVV virus. And yeah, they actually all decided to go, no, it's cool. And I'm like, wait, what? Yeah, and they just let him off the hook, and they decided to be nice. I'm like, wow, guys, I was genuinely not expecting this. I was expecting you guys to be like, better dead than ghouls, bang, 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 bang. So their reward was another joke from Anansi. 4 men are on a boat with 3 cigarettes and nothing to light them. One man flicks 1 cigarette overboard and the boat becomes 1 cigarette lighter. Hey! Let's see. Kasumi accidentally summons Wendigo. She was attempting, I think, to summon a Tengu or something. And Wendigo arrives because the flow of energy was so familiar because she was doing it in the attic of Rainbow Sushi. And Kasumi is deeply offended because the first thing Wendigo does is make a joke about her physique. And then Senko totally high-fives him about it.
For those of you who are not aware, because Shiranui Kazumi, her name is a reference to 2 incredibly well-endowed ninja female characters from various fighting games. So
Yes.
it was just kind of understood that Kasumi herself is kind of similarly well-endowed.
Yep. And then we have the battle that takes us to the abandoned hotel because we had a hostage situation. And
I don't remember that one.
this one was fairly short and actually didn't end up being terribly important.
Oh, wait, no. Was that the one where it was the guy with the frost attack?
Yes.
Oh, man.
We discovered just how terrifying elemental damage can be in Shadowrun, because ice magic destroys your armor. It doesn't ignore it. It eviscerates it. So, poor Kasumi is caught directly in the middle of it, and Senko jumps up onto her midsection and wraps her tail around her to keep Kasumi say so. And then for some reason, Temperance, like, goes to the astral plane to try to, like, get a view of what all's going inside the hotel. And really doesn't help all that much, so I decide to keep things a little interesting. So he has this run-in with this particular weird... Okay, it's an entity from a book that's now considered non-canon. There was a space-themed expansion in Shadowrun that takes place in, I want to say, the 8th or 10th world, where humanity has basically colonized other planets and has moved on beyond. And it turns out, Earth has lots of scary stuff on it because all the really, really, really scary stuff lives in space. So he has a brief run-in with one of these entities that basically shows up and goes boo and scares Temperance back to his body. I didn't actually do anything. I wasn't going to be so mean as to throw like an eldritch abomination against him. I just wanted to spook him a little bit.
Ooh, it's Cthulhu.
And then, that's when poor Kasumi gets blasted by ice magic, and Clockwork is like, hey, dude, doesn't ice magic destroy armor? And I was like, wait, does it?
Oh, no.
So then I had to check the book again, and I was like, oh, so it does. And Dutaku's like, but all she's wearing is an armored bodysuit. And I'm like, what do you mean, all she's Oh, no. And so... I'm
not going to be wearing, like, a crap load of armor or clothing. I mean, she's an infiltrator. Just ask.
Yeah, and so... I'm like, what about you, Troppo? Didn't you take some damage? And he's like, yes, but my clothes are insulated. And I'm like, why can't I get one over on you?
Because Ditaku already did.
I mean, that's fair. So then, I introduced... This was supposed to be a long-running gag, and I never actually got to make good on it, because we encounter Aka Oni. And Aka Oni is from a ninja clan of titular... of color-themed Onis, and battles against Kasumi in a ninja battle. Kasumi decides to basically just dedicate all of her magical power into kicking him directly in the hand, and tells him to recite his death haiku. So Aka Oni responds, ow, 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 that was once my hand. And then he explodes.
Yeah, see, the entire thing with Kasumi is that I learned a few things. First off, you could stack bonuses with martial arts, which are a thing that the run and gun supplement gave us. Secondly, you can basically do martial arts techniques with any limb. And since the entire thing with ninjutsu is that they have abilities that boost your kick, and then you have the randori, which allows you to do what they call dirty tricks, which is like, oh yeah, you can strike at, nerve clusters or, at blind spots. And I'm basically like, I'm gonna kick him in the junk. And so he's like, ha-ha! And he grabs my foot with his hand, which is how he got hit. At which point, then his hand basically explodes because I kicked him so hard.
All that energy just goes right into the hand and doesn't have anywhere else to go. After which, it's revealed that Kasumi's mentor is one Takeshi Hongo. A nice little loving homage to Kamen Rider the First. And that's actually where the game ended. Because, well, all hell broke loose. And two of our team ended up in the hospital, and yeah, that was bad times. Overall, I would rate my own first outing as GM as mostly successful. There were a few things I definitely could have done better, but I learned a lot from the experience.
Kick to the crotch to the hand out of 10.
I'll take that as a good score. That sounds good to me. So yeah, no, it went well. Troppo is still active. The other runners are... Kasumi is currently listed as MIA, and we don't know what happened to Temperance. He just kind of wandered off somewhere, and that was kind of the end of that.
Kazumi's still around. In fact, actually, Shiawase, my character, is a younger corporate ninja who is actually kind of the clueless. Basically, she is using the clueless Japanese, as a cover, but then she actually became Japanese because she got basically scammed out of all of her money. And
Yeah.
since she can't kill her target yet, she's not going to get paid. So she basically has to become a run.
Yeah, just in order to make the ends meet.
Yeah.
And there was a short-lived sequel game where Cog even joined us for a time, and I discovered firsthand just how riggers are very different from every other class in Shadowrun. That one didn't last too long, and a lot of those ideas I had for that game were recycled for a future project that only just got started, which I've lovingly titled The Ninja War. Because everyone's ninjas, apparently. And
Everyone
Troppo,
ninjas.
yeah, I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm just going to fill Seattle with ninjas and see what happens. So that's going to be a future one that we'll get to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that's Shadowrun for now.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for, again, joining me for these Shadowrun episodes, Mr. Dutaku.
Well, not a problem. I quite enjoy talking about tabletop.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And next time, we'll be talking about D&D and a world that I have made and yet to play. So that should be fun.
Yeah.
All right. This is Dutaku and the Hipster Snack signing off for now.
Have fun, everybody.